Welcome everyone to another episode of Retro Wrestling Reviews. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we look back at Mid-South Wrestling's January 28th, 1982 show. Before we get to the review, be sure to click that subscribe button. We'll have more wrestling show reviews as well as the Lucha World podcast and other content available. This show was taped on January 20th, 1982 at the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. Boyd Pierce and Cowboy Bill Watts are back on commentary. But this time, Boyd Pierce has a gold suit and tie on. Watts jokes that he'd need to wear sunglasses to look at Pierce because of how bright his gold suit is. The first match features Captain Redneck Dick Murdoch beating Tom Renesto Jr. with a brainbuster. Bill Watts on commentary brings up how Rhodes and Murdoch like to trash talk with the Briscoes and himself over the Texas-Oklahoma football game. Murdoch dominated most of the match and gets a pretty easy win. That is then followed by a General Skandor Akbar video interview where he talks about the Iron Sheik being called by the Ayatollah to return to Iran and thus had to leave the territory. Akbar believes there is a conspiracy to have the Iron Sheik leave Mid-South and thinks the Big Cat Ernie Ladd's the man behind it. That interview is then followed by the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika, with Ernie Ladd beating Frank Monty and Terry Daniels after a headbutt off the middle rope by Sika onto Daniels led to the pin. This was a quick, short squash match. Really not much to it other than the Samoans just dominating their opponents and getting a quick win. The next match features Brian Blair beating Carlos Zapata after a guillotine leads to the pin on Zapata. Another short match with Blair dominating most of the action, while Zapata would make a couple of comebacks, but Blair always fired back and got the win. The match that followed that was the Junkyard Dog and Mike George beating Bob Orton Jr. and Paul Orndorff when Junkyard Dog gets the pin after a big thump power slam. This was a good match. Started off right before the bell rang with everyone brawling. Finish came when Orton Jr. accidentally hit Orndorff with an elbow, and JYD caught him with a headbutt and followed with a big thump on Orndorff to get the big win. This was really, like I said, a good match, the highlight of this show this week. That was then followed by Mr. Olympia beating Ed Wiskowski to retain the Mississippi heavyweight title after catching Wiskowski with the sleeper hold for the win. This was another good match. Wiskowski got in a lot of offense throughout the match, but Mr. Olympia used his speed to counter and was able to get the win. They then aired the closing moments of a match between Paul Orndorff and Ted DiBiase from a few weeks ago. DiBiase had Orndorff in the figure 4 leg lock and then Orndorff reversed it. They both rolled out of the ring. They got back in the ring and the referee was knocked down as he collided with DiBiase. Orndorff put DiBiase back into the figure 4 leg lock. Murdoch came out to get the referee back in the ring. DiBiase reversed the figure 4 leg lock. Bob Roop jumped off the top rope with a knee on DiBiase. Murdoch then chased Bob Roop away. Referee got back in the ring and counted the pinfall for Paul Orndorff on DiBiase. Orndorff was given the North American title. Murdoch then came back and told the referee what had happened, and he took away the belt from Orndorff and gave it back to Ted DiBiase. The referee said Orndorff had won the title, but he hit DiBiase with the belt, and that was an automatic disqualification. After that video was aired, they go to the next match, which was supposed to be Bob Roop versus Ted DiBiase. But as that match was being announced, Paul Orndorff, wearing a referee shirt that looks 2 sizes too big, gets in the ring. He talked about how the referees are very biased and were leaning towards DiBiase's favor. Orndorff said he was sanctioned and licensed to officiate this match. Orndorff tells the referee to go talk to Freddie Miller on the phone. DiBiase tells Orndorff that he wasn't going to wrestle the match with him as a referee. Orndorff then warns DiBiase that if he doesn't wrestle, he can suspend him. DiBiase tells Orndorff that he can't believe Freddie Miller, Grizzly Smith, or anyone in Mid-South Wrestling would allow him to be a referee. Orndorff grabs DiBiase by the hair. They start to brawl. Bob Roop joins in on the attack on DiBiase. That leads to Dick Murdoch coming back and helping DiBiase, and all 4 men brawl in the ring. This was a wild segment on this show. Fun segment, actually. That was then followed by the another match that was just there to fill TV time. Bill Ash versus Rick Ferrara, which ended in a TV time limit draw due to the show coming to an end, of course. Really, that was one of the things with Mid-South, that they would always throw out a match that, and you'd, instead of really just going to the announcers and talking about what just happened, whatever amount of time they had on TV, if they would give the guys another match, and usually it was like, maybe if it was 30 seconds, that's what you got. And I think that in this one it was about a minute long. So really not much in the last match, just there to fill time. I thought this was an enjoyable show. The highlights were the tag team match between JYD and Mike George versus Paul Orndorff and Bob Orton Jr., and the DiBiase Paul Orndorff angle that later on the show. The other match I thought was pretty good was Mr. Olympia versus Ed Wiskowski. The rest of the matches were kept pretty short. The other thing that was a nice highlight to the show was the General Skandor Akbar explaining why the Iron Sheik wasn't on the show and no longer in the territory. I had actually missed the part where he blamed Ernie Ladd the previous time, so that was something I hadn't noticed, and this time now hearing that makes me realize why we get what happens later on in upcoming shows between Skandor Akbar and Ernie Ladd. But like I said, this was an enjoyable show, fun show. If you want to watch this show, I definitely recommend watching the tag match and the angle that followed with DiBiase and Orndorff. Everything else, I mean, it's pretty much just there to fill time, honestly. So that's it for this review. Be sure to subscribe to the Retro Wrestling YouTube channel, and we'll be back again soon with more reviews.